At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in Healthcare Informatics, Digital Marketing and Analytics, Business Analytics, or Financial Analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.
The following is a Red Apple Podcast Network presentation.
They say this is a big rich town. I just come from the poet's part. Bright light, city life, I gotta make it.
Welcome to Dominic Carter's podcast. This is Dominic Carter's City Hall. Now, here's Dominic Carter.
Red Apple Podcast Talk Radio 77 WABC. You can listen to me, Dominic Carter, weekdays 3 to 4 p.m. live, then back again weeknights, midnight to 1 a.m. live as well. Plus on Sundays, 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. Oftentimes, the most important conversations about law enforcement comes from the people responsible for protecting our communities each and every day. The challenges ahead, yes, what it takes to keep communities safe, but the despicable way police are treated these days all over the country when they are the ones putting their lives on the line to protect us. This is my podcast. Let's go. And we have the great honor of chatting with the Public Safety Director here in Nutley, New Jersey, and that's Alphonse Petracco. Sir, it's so nice for you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing me here. I appreciate it.
And so, I wanted to talk to you because I met you once before and you spoke at an event I was at, and the crowd really resonated with you. I could tell that the local community greatly appreciates you. So you're the Public Safety Director here in Nutley, New Jersey. What does that job entail? You don't just handle the police, correct?
Right. I'm in charge of police, fire, and the EMTs in Nutley here. Yes.
So you have 3 different agencies, basically.
I do.
And they all report to you?
100%.
What is that like?
Well, it depends on what's going on in our township. I mean, if storms are coming through.
Like recently?
Right, like recently with all the snow. What we do through our fire department is make sure we clear paths. Our DPW does a great job. They do the streets. But let's say we get an ambulance call and there's a 2 foot of snow like there was. Now we have to send our fire department out with our EMTs to clear a path so they can get to the people inside the home. So, we deal with storms. We've dealt with hurricanes in my career. Sandy was a big one. There was a lot of flooding in Nutley. And right now we're dealing a lot with, with the police department, how police are viewed, not only here in Nutley, but all across the country. And it's, cops have a very difficult job with this new bail reform. To all your listeners, Mr. Carter, if, we could send a message to these legislators, it's really a failed experience. It makes our cops job even tougher. Here in Nutley, we don't have the horrific crimes. We don't have murders, homicides, things like that, thank God. But what I call them is quality of life issues here.
Which are extremely important.
Well, listen, the taxes aren't cheap in our town, like they're not cheap in all of New Jersey. And, when you start interfering with people's, qualities and what they're paying for, the big burden to our Nutley Police Department have been these house break-ins. And what's happening in Nutley and all surrounding towns and all across New Jersey is that, these kids, unfortunately, are breaking into houses to steal your key fobs. And then they, take the car. And, it's just a recipe for disaster. God forbid they walk into the wrong house where, somebody's armed, and, it could get really ugly in a second. And the issue that I have, the big issue I have, is that the Nutley Police Department, along like a lot of outside agencies through New Jersey, they do a great job, and they arrest these kids, mostly juveniles, and before the cop is done with the report, they're back out on the street. And it's, if there's no punishment for the crimes here, the quality of life issues are deteriorating. And I urge, all your listeners, I urge all of, the legislators, of our government bodies throughout the state of New Jersey, really have to look into this. And, there needs to be change to this law because it's a failure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are chatting with Public Safety Director here in Nutley, New Jersey, Alphonse Petracco. So you, I believe, were the mayor from 2012 to 2016. Is that correct?
I was, yes.
And what was that like?
Well, listen, unfortunately now my mom and dad are gone, but it was...
Sorry to hear that. My condolences.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And it was such an honor to have them both alive during that term that I did. I was the mayor here. And listen, Nutley's a special town, and it really is a privilege and an honor to serve as the mayor of your town, especially when your mom and dad are alive. I have brothers, and, I grew up.
That was the pride of their life, to see you as the mayor.
And I come from, very common people, so to speak. My father was a laborer. My mother was a waitress. And, to have them see, this like a regular Joe, which I am, growing up in Nutley, become the mayor was really special to me.
What I've noticed about you, Director, is you're very hands-on man of the community. You don't come off as the top administrator. You're down at the ground level with the rest of us. Why is that?
Well, listen, I think that starts as your childhood, and my dad, very honorable man, always taught us to lead by example, so I've never asked my people to do something that I wouldn't do. When something's up in Nutley, I'm in my car, I'm driving around supporting our police, fire, and EMTs, and all the town workers and all the residents. If something's up in somebody's house, and a lot of times, some people just need, to know you're there, and you put your arm around them and you say, you know what, we know you're in a crisis situation, and, to show them some affection, and it settles them down.
Now, you have on your work jacket, which says, a black jacket and gold, it says Nutley Police, New Jersey, Director Alphonse Petracco. What's the best part of your job as the Director of Public Safety? What's the worst part of your job?
Well, unfortunately, we'll start with the worst and work our way to the good. The worst part of my job is to, see somebody lose a loved one, if it's from natural causes or, obviously through the state, the drugs are an epidemic too. And, we're not immune to, overdoses and things like that. So it's like, being in my seat in charge of police and fire and the EMTs, you see people at their worst times, and there has been a lot of sadness, through my career, a loss of a child, car accidents, things like that, drug overdoses.
And you see those things?
I do see them, yes. And let's brighten it up. I mean, the best thing of my job is to see somebody that was really down, at their lowest point and lift that person up. If it was, we have great drug programs in Nutley. I started this program when I first got elected. It's called HOPE, Helping Our Parents Endure. And what that is it teaches our parents, because there's no blueprint. If little Johnny comes home high, what do? We're parents. We make mistakes. And drugs, unfortunately, do not discriminate. They're in every family, and they were in mine as well, unfortunately. And by going through these processes, we now have programs in Nutley where if little Johnny comes home high on marijuana, because as we know that's the gateway drug, we don't want it to escalate into something else. So we have these seminars all the time which teaches our parents what to do and not let that progress at all.
So you're talking about something near and dear to my heart. My grandmother raised me on a tradition. She didn't have much of a formal education. She would say, boy, stay away from the marijuana cigarettes, that marijuana. And her point was it leads to cocaine, it leads to heroin, it leads to crack. And she should know because her husband ended up being a heroin addict. So you talk about it being in your family. It's in my family as well, Director. And so you actually started a program where if the gateway drug of marijuana, because we know that it is a gateway to other things. I don't care how cute government says it is, it's a gateway drug. But you've got a program to deal with that right now here in Nutley, New Jersey.
Right. We have programs, drug intervention programs as well. I mean, talking about the marijuana law, and none of us are critics here, but by legalizing that and, to me, it's just a money grab. It's another thing that makes a police officer's job so difficult. You pull over a car. Now it's not just the alcohol. Now it's the marijuana. We train our officers to recognize the signs if the person is inadequate to drive and to be charged with that. But it's a whole, mess of criteria that they have to meet.
Chain of events.
And again, we don't want people driving drunk. We don't want people, driving high. You're going to hurt yourself and you're going to, unfortunately, maybe hurt somebody else. And then you have to live with that, the rest of your life. So, me personally, legalizing marijuana, not the right thing to do. And I even hear there's talk about legalizing cocaine now. The government should stick to what they know, and, truthfully, we want to get drugs, off our streets. We don't want to, keep going forward with even harder drugs, And then, as adolescents and, I know, I wasn't an angel my whole life. If the government's saying, yeah, you could go buy it at the dispensary and it's legal, is that really the message that we want to send to our youth in America today? And then maybe someday you're going to be able to buy heroin and, cocaine. And we know as adults, we know where those drugs lead to. And it's no place good. And those addictions are very, very hard to stop. Once you taste that and get that into your system, it's a lifetime of burden, not only for the person using, their families, their parents, their cousins, their brothers. There's nothing like seeing somebody go down that path.
So, Director, and we are talking to someone that's not just law enforcement. He deals with firefighters, EMS. He is the Director of Public Safety here in Nutley, New Jersey, Alphonse Petracco. And, Director, I want to ask you a few more questions I have, and I'll let you get back to your schedule. So your job, you have to run for. It's elective office. You have to run for it.
Correct.
And so you've been doing this how many years?
I'm going into my 19th year.
Wow.
Yep. It's every 4 years we run it in Nutley for commissioners, the exact title, and I've been in office since 2008. Have never lost an election. And you know what? I don't toot my own horn, but people see what you do. I'm out there. If something's up, if God forbid we have a fire in town, 2:00 in the morning, I go to the scene. I support my men. Our fire department has, the ambulance squad now in it. The calls are up. The volume from when I started for police and fire, the calls of service are through the roof. I'm very proud to say that our taxpayers in Nutley, too, they do support public safety. We do not stack calls in Nutley because we have the proper funding for it. So we could respond anywhere in our town with police, fire, or the EMTs under 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. So you won my heart over when I was here. You on a Saturday, you came in at an event on children with special needs, and you spoke from the heart, and the crowd loved it, and they all stood up and gave you a standing ovation. And I'll never forget you for that reason alone. So it's my understanding that you also have training for your officers that may deal with people with special needs where they may not recognize it at first.
Yes. Well, when I first got elected, there was a little, void in that process because autism wasn't so, prevalent as it is today. And, thank God we didn't have any issues in Nutley, but actually a parent from Nutley with a son that has autism, she brought that to my attention, and it was wonderful, and I praise her for doing that, because the last thing that we want to do is, upset these families even more than they're upset now, and it's dealing and recognizing that you don't have somebody misbehaving. You have, somebody that has autism. And, Nutley has great programs for autism. Our police department is well trained in it. We embrace it here in town. We're here to help people. When I hire a new police officer, firefighter, EMT, the first thing I say to them is, why do you want to be a cop, fireman, or EMT guy? You know what? I want to help people. And Mr. Carter, I make sure they never forget that message. 5 years on the job, 10 years on the job, 25 years on the job. I remember them when you sat in my office and I gave you this job. What is our job? To help people. Don't forget it.
Wow. You are phenomenal. I want to close this way, and it's sort of negative, but it's positive because we're highlighting the problem. The impossible job of police officers across the country every day. You have these quote-unquote young people. I call many of them savages. For example, the recent incident in New York City where they're throwing snowballs, blocks of ice at police officers, and they think it's funny. Director, how did we get to this point? How do we get out of this point in terms of disrespecting police?
Well, listen, I watch the news too, and it's really disheartening because, we're not children, we're adults. And, if God forbid I ever threw a block of ice, water bottle at a police officer, I would hope that the police officer locked me up in my day, because
On the spot.
On the spot, because if they drag me home to my father,
it's worse.
I might not be here today.
Right. And that's the same thing with my children.
And I think that what we have to remember in America here, and I think that, the message is falling, respect. If you want respect, give respect. And, I don't like the division at all, what's going on in our country. And I just want to remind everybody, we are all Americans here. No matter what side of the aisle that you are on, we have a flag. It's called the United States of America flag. That represents all of us, no matter what race, creed, or walk of life you come from. And, the division in this country is awful. And I'm praying to God that this changes, because I'm getting up in my years, Mr. Carter.
So am I.
But our children and our grandchildren,
we're both going to be old men.
Right. The future of America rests in all of us. And I hope that we could respect the job that police officers do, because when you need them, there's an old saying, nobody wants to pay for a cop or fireman until you need them. They're going to come running to aid you. Okay? And we have a lot of good cops across this country. Unfortunately, what you see on the news is a 10-second clip of a cop that did something wrong. And I'm not saying that there's no fault, and there is, a small percentage of cops that maybe shouldn't have become cops.
Very small percentage.
Exactly. But overwhelmingly, cops.
You're talking about heroes.
Heroes and people that risk their lives to keep us safe.
Well, Director Petracco, Alphonse Petracco, Public Safety Director here in Nutley, New Jersey. You are phenomenal. You are an American hero. An honor to chat with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Indeed. God bless America.
This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
Again, my thanks to Alphonse Petracco, the Director of Public Safety in Nutley, New Jersey. Conversations like this help us better understand the realities officers and communities face every day. And that is all the time we have for this episode. You can listen to me, Dominic Carter, weekdays 3 to 4 p.m. live, then back again weeknights, midnight to 1 a.m. Plus on Sundays, 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. Red Apple Podcast Talk Radio 77 WABC.
I gotta make it.
Dominic Carter socials on Twitter at Dominic TV and Facebook and Instagram. Dominic Carter TV. Email at dominic.carter@wabcradio.com. Until the next episode, be well. And as Dominic always says, stay positive. The glass is always half full, never half empty. Dominic Carter City Hall.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
At BeBullish.com.